Welcome to This Explainer. Ever look around and wonder, hey, why don't we have like 10 Silicon Valleys scattered across the globe by now? Today, we're taking a fascinating look into the world of global innovation. We're going to break down exactly why creating the next massive tech mecca is both historically and geographically literally impossible to just copy and paste. Let's get right into it.
So let's kick things off with a simple yet absolutely incredibly expensive question. Can a city just buy its own tech hub? For half a century now, governments and eager investors have been desperately trying to bottle the magic of the San Francisco Peninsula into a clean, exportable blueprint. They want to surgically extract that innovative vitality and just transplant it right into their own backyards.
And the sheer scale of this obsession is wild. We're talking trillions of dollars all over the globe. From London's Silicon Roundabout to Austin's Silicon Hills, municipal planners have poured staggering amounts of cash into subsidies, tax breaks, in infrastructure. They're all trying to artificially manifest the next tech capital. And yet, it almost always ends in total frustration. Why? Well, because they fundamentally misunderstand what it is they are actually trying to replicate.
Section 1. The Silicon Valley Myth. Unpacking the Blueprint. The harsh reality here is that Silicon Valley is not some plug-and-play economic app that you can just easily install on any municipal server. That's a complete myth. Think of it more like a geographically locked, sociologically evolved reactor core. It's the result of a highly specific, totally unrepeatable convergence of factors that played out over 7 long decades. You just can't manufacture that. Section 2. A Chain of Accidents. The Unreplicable History.
The biggest reason this region defies replication comes down to a really fascinating concept called path dependency. Basically, it means that current dominance relies on a specific, unbroken, cumulative chain of historical accidents. You cannot simply buy 70 years of evolved history. Literally no amount of modern-day venture capital can artificially manufacture the unique ancestry that actually built the valley.
Let's trace that ancestry for a second. Back in the 1950s, Cold War military spending from the Navy and NASA at Moffett Field laid down this massive industrial base of aerospace and radio expertise. That was the foundational scaffolding. Then, boom, 1957 hits, bringing a massive cultural shift. The traitorous 8 famously walked out of Shockley Semiconductor. This single schism birthed a completely new culture of high-velocity, disruptive talent spin-offs. It was a total rejection of traditional corporate loyalty. And finally, in the 1960s, Stanford's Fred Terman engineered a brilliant symbiotic link between academia and industry. He actively pushed brilliant minds to turn their lab failures into corporate assets. That's an institutional glue you simply can't recreate overnight.
Section 3. The Collision Matrix. High-density proximity.
But it's not just the history, it's the geography. This innovation engine is quite literally a prisoner of its own physical space. The whole cycle relies incredibly heavily on spontaneous face-to-face encounters. When a founder walks out of a hacker house in the Mission District, they are stepping into a hyper-dense physical world. Within just a 3-mile radius, you've got the world's absolute tightest concentration of risk capital partners, cutting-edge machine learning researchers, and specialized semiconductor foundry leads, all literally bumping into each other on the street. The contrast with traditional cities is pretty staggering. Most cities are built around stable hierarchies, right, where new ideas are slowly filtered through formal, multi-month boardroom application processes. But this crucible, it thrives on what we call collision friction. In the urban grid of San Francisco, a life-changing idea gets validated or totally discarded in a 30-second encounter over coffee or chatting at a local neighborhood tavern. You just cannot host a culture of high-stakes creative destruction in a city that's built from the ground up to prioritize regulatory stability. Section 4. The Culture of Failure, an Institutional Moat. To really understand this institutional moat, you have to look at the math. In almost every other global ecosystem, a startup failure is this massive, career-ending mark of shame. But not here. Local investors deliberately back unorthodox, contrarian thinkers because they deeply understand the brutal power law math of venture capital. They fully expect 90% of their bets to fail. In fact, they need them to fail fast, so that the remaining 10% can hit those astronomical, world-changing returns that sustain the entire ecosystem. So what actually happens when one of those startups inevitably goes under? Well, instead of everyone scattering and hiding, it triggers this incredibly efficient talent recycling machine. First, the startup collapses, but it's treated as a critical data gathering event. Next, that highly trained talent doesn't flee the city. They're scooped up almost immediately into the next batch of prototypes. And finally, all that hard-won knowledge from the failure is instantly transferred to the new venture. It essentially creates a recursive, self-learning network that stays permanently miles ahead of any outside competitor.
Section 5. Play to regional strengths, escaping the mimicry trap.
So, if we want to stop wasting trillions of dollars, policymakers really need to escape this mimicry trap. Trying to force a Silicon Valley model onto a region that naturally lacks the right historical and demographic ingredients is just a massive strategic disadvantage. When you try to legislate innovation through generic tax breaks or state-funded incubators, you just end up with a shallow imitation. It creates a state-dependent corporate environment that completely lacks the raw, high-stakes edge of a truly self-organizing market. The absolutely most successful ecosystems of the future are going to explicitly reject the goal of imitation. Instead, cities need to lean into their own existing backyards. New York City, for example, shouldn't try to be Silicon Valley. Its proximity to global banking capital makes it a natural, highly effective fintech hub. Down in Los Angeles, they've got a foundational entertainment industry, making it the perfect bespoke crucible for entertainment tech. Cities really only succeed when they build off their own unique historical identities.
This mental shift is absolutely critical today because, let's face it, capital is now a global commodity. You can secure venture funding literally anywhere in the world. The money itself is no longer the unique value proposition. The true irreplaceable value is proximity to talent and that high-velocity collision density we talked about. The era of a single monopolistic center of innovation is ending, and it's making way for highly specialized interdisciplinary hubs all around the world.
Silicon Valley is a singular historical artifact. It's an absolute marvel, but it is not a blueprint. So I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought to ponder today. Instead of trying to artificially imitate a 1950s Californian Orchard Valley, take a real look around. What is the foundational industry in your city's backyard? And what unique, specialized crucible can your region build today? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this totally changes how you view the geography of innovation.